Progressives have successfully pushed Joe Biden to the left on the refugee cap. Now, as I'll get to, there are limitations on this sort of blowback. That said, let me break this down and show you exactly what happened. So I initially covered the first version of this story at the end of April. Democrats slammed Biden over another broken promise. This was over Biden saying that he would now keep Trump's cap on refugee admissions at the low level of 15,000, which is absolutely ridiculous when you compare it to a country like Canada, which at the end of Trump's term, Canada was bringing in more refugees overall compared to the US, despite the fact that Canada has 10 times less the population. So this is not per capita, but overall, Canada was bringing in actually more refugees than the US was. But you see under Obama's years, high level of numbers of refugees coming in. So by his last year, 2016 here, Obama had brought in close to 100,000 refugees, and then you see the drop considerably immediately once Trump came in, and then that continued to around 15,000 by the time he was leaving. So Biden was going to continue Trump's low level. Outrage came from people like AOC, who tweeted out at the time, completely and utterly unacceptable. Biden promised to welcome immigrants, and people voted for him based on that promise. Upholding the xenophobic and racist policies of the Trump admin, including the historically low and plummeted refugee cap, is flat out wrong. Keep your promise. So you had AOC, Ilhan Omar, and other progressive lawmakers come out and call Biden out publicly over this. And guess what? Pressure worked. Biden raised his refugee cap to 62,500 after blowback. Quote, I am revising the United States' annual refugee admissions cap to 62,500 for the fiscal year, Biden said in a lengthy statement Monday. This erases the historically low number set by the previous administration of 15,000, which did not reflect America's values as a nation that welcomes and supports refugees. The administration announced in a separate memorandum that of the slots being made available, 22,000 would be allocated to refugees coming from Africa, 13,000 to Near East and South Asia, 6,000 to East Asia, 4,000 to Europe and Central Asia, 5,000 to Latin America and the Caribbean, and the remaining 12,500 would remain unallocated. The president acknowledged that the country would not hit the cap this year, cautioning that it would take time to rebuild the infrastructure needed to take in and support tens of thousands of refugees as the U.S. has traditionally done. He expressed a commitment to setting the cap at 125,000 refugees during his first full fiscal year in office. So you have here a clear example of Joe Biden being pushed by progressive lawmakers to the left. Now, there are limitations on this sort of pressure, as I'll get to in a second. And it's also worth mentioning that this number that Biden has now set the refugee cap to is what he promised initially. So he already promised this back in February, then gave in to the right and lowered it, and then gave in to the left and put it back where it was. So it's not like Biden's being pushed to a position that he never held before. That said, clearly the outrage is the reason that he moved his position here back to where it was. Now, the limitations to this, while it's good to see, tweets like this and the sort of pressure being used publicly against Joe Biden, we want to, of course, continue seeing this. There is limitations on this sort of pressure. You have here an issue in the refugee cap that does not offend corporate America. Corporate America is not bothered by the cap being raised the way it has. What does offend corporate America is raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, is raising the corporate tax rate to where it was under Obama at 35% or going higher, or maybe replacing private health insurance with Medicare for all. So these issues that offend the Chamber of Commerce, corporations, these are the issues where this sort of online pressure is only going to take you so far. This is why Democrats in Congress need to be willing to flex their power in various ways, either by withholding their vote on a bill that Biden wants passed, vote as a block, as a progressive block in the House. There's about 20 of them in the Progressive Caucus. They can vote as a block against a bill that Biden really wants passed as a way to make a statement to say, hey, we want this bill improved, or we want to see something else passed first before this is done. And also, another way to flex or grow their power is by continuing to primary sitting Democrats that are corporate Democrats and be willing to have those challenged and endorse those candidates publicly against their peers in Congress. So it has to be an all the above approach. So it's not that this sort of approach is wrong or misguided. It's not. This pressure worked. But you have to continue seeing this, and they have to also be willing to flex their power. Because if they only do one, then this sort of pressure will only take you so far. Biden will move left on issues that don't offend corporate America, but once we get to those issues, it's going to be a lot tougher to move him unless there is some actual flexing of power and growing of their power in Congress.